Tonight we're studying Parashat Vaetchanan, and we're studying the holy words of Rabbi Leib Heyman. And Rabbi Leib this week mentions to us a rather interesting question on the Ten Commandments. If we look at the Ten Commandments, Rabbi Leib says, this is a short but a powerful, very, very powerful novelty, Dvar Torah. This Dvar Torah, I'll say it now and I'll repeat it at the end, is applicable to, obviously, this week's Torah portion. It's applicable to the season of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And it's also applicable to the season of Pesach, of the Exodus. So listen to the following. If we look at the Ten Commandments that we find in this week's Torah portion, we find that the Exodus is mentioned twice. Meaning, unlike in the first tablets just was mentioned by the first commandment. This week, the concept of Yetziat Mitzrayim, the Exodus, being freed from Egypt, is mentioned twice. Excuse me? It's mentioned number one. First time it's mentioned is in the first commandment, just like in the first set of the tablets. Look on your screen. Here we go. Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 6. Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hotzeticha mitzrayim mibet avadim. Hashem says, I am the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Okay, seems pretty straightforward. Rashi comments on this verse, but back in Exodus, saying that taking you out of Egypt, God is telling us, is a sufficient enough reason for us to be subject to Hashem. As opposed to, now this is not Rashi, this is how the commentaries explain, as opposed to Hashem introducing himself for the very first time, I am the God that, what's God's greatest claim to fame? Creating the world. God does not say that. God says, I am the God who took you out of Egypt. So we know the famous answer for that, and that's the Kuzari that tells us that the Jewish people actually witnessed Hashem saving them out of Egypt. When they didn't witness Hashem, create the world. But what Rashi's telling us that the very fact that Hashem took us out of Egypt is a good enough reason for us to be completely subject to him. Now, next, I mentioned this Rashi on purpose. Rabbi Leib mentioned this Rashi on purpose, as you'll soon see. Next is the fifth commandment. Sorry, the fourth commandment. The commandment of Shabbat. Take a look at Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 15. It says, V'zacharta. After it says, Shamor et Yom HaShabbat Kadesho, it says, V'zacharta, you shall remember, Ki eved aita beretz Yitzrayim. You shall remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt. And Hashem took you out of there with a strong hand and outstretched arm. Therefore, Hashem commanded you to observe the day of Shabbat. So again, the Exodus was mentioned of Egypt in the first commandment as well as in the fourth commandment. This time Rashi says that Hashem redeemed you on the condition that you will be a slave to him and to keep his commandments. Remember, Hashem said, I'm freeing you, but I'm freeing you from one master and I'm introducing you to a new master, basically himself. So Rashi says the condition why we were redeemed was in order to fulfill Hashem's commandments. So now Reb Leib asks a series of questions. Number one, he wants to know, what's the reason why the Exodus is mentioned twice? Is there a specific reason for that? Sorry. Is there any difference between the first time it's mentioned and the second time it's mentioned? And furthermore, why does Rashi explain the way he does in both instances? Again, the basic idea is, what is the reason that the Exodus has to be mentioned twice in the Ten Commandments? So Reb Leib says that the Exodus was an awesome and a miraculous and just an amazing display of God, to the point where it was as great as the creation of the world itself, he says. Do we understand this? That the Exodus was as great as the creation. As if to say that Hashem recreated the world anew by freeing the Jewish people from Egypt. And the sages tell us that the 10 plagues that took place in Egypt are a parallel to the 10 utterances in which God created the world. Furthermore, the kneading of the matzah, the dough of the matzah, is compared to Hashem creating man from the dust of the earth. So there are correlations between the creation of the world and the Exodus. And the purpose of Hashem taking out the Jewish people of Egypt, specifically the way he did, was to make it, Reb Leib says, evident to all that Hashem is the creator and the ruler of the world. Reb Leib says it's two different things. There's creator, that's number one. Number two, the ruler of the world. Until Hashem performed these 10 plagues and freed the Jewish people from Egypt, he was not known as the creator and the ruler of the world. It was concealed. But now Reb Leib says it became known to all in the most obvious way. Hashem literally recreated the world by the exodus from Egypt. And Reb Leib explains deeper, because this is the concept that he hits at home, nice and proper. He says, imagine for a moment that Hashem would have created Adam Harishon right at the beginning of creation. And then Adam would have seen, he would have witnessed Hashem create all of the other creations, the millions of creations during the next 6 days. Adam's recognition of God being the creator would have been complete and undeniable. And as a result of that, Adam's level of gratitude towards God would have been complete. And Hashem would, so to say, even demand from Adam to serve him without any hesitation. But what happened? Hashem created Adam, and Adam shows up at the end of the creation. We know why that. Hashem did it that way, as the commentaries explain, so Adam wouldn't think that he himself was the creator. But even though we have that advantage, there is a disadvantage. The disadvantage is that now he comes at the end and he comes to a world with a sense of invisibility of God. The creator is not so apparent. There's room for one to even draw other conclusions, chas v'shalom. Furthermore, how does Hashem run this world? And even Adam experienced that through what we call teva, through nature, which is designed to conceal Hashem himself. So this is what the Exodus did. It was now, almost 2,500 years later, it removed all questions and doubts about who is the rightful creator. That Hashem is the creator. And how do we know that? Because he revealed himself to all. Hashem now also is recreating, Reb Leib says, the relationship between the descendants of Adam Harishon. As now they all see during this Exodus, all aspects of nature, meaning water, fire, earth, air, all being manipulated by the creator. Completely used in another way, in a new way, in an obvious way, that everyone has to conclude that there is a creator and a ruler, and it is God and God himself only. Because Hashem, Reb Leib says, freed the Jewish people, freed us from Egypt, we are now obligated to acknowledge and to relate to Hashem's rulership, his kingship, in two different ways. Number one, his kingship over the entire world. And number two, his kingship over Bnei Israel. Now, based on this, he explains back on our question. How come there's a need to mention the Exodus twice in the 10 Commandments? The first time it was mentioned in the first commandment to remind the Jewish people of Hashem's rulership over the entire world. Anochi Hashem Elokecha, which was accomplished by the Exodus. That's why Asher hotzeticha me'eretz Mitzrayim. And he recreated the world then by displaying his power, and therefore now we are indebted to Hashem, says Reb Leib, and obligated to worship him out of the hakarat hatov, out of the gratitude we have for him as our king, as the king of the world. That's the first aspect. That's why Rashi writes, taking us out of Egypt was sufficient enough to be subject to him. And the emphasis is that this exodus obligates us to be subjects of Hashem, all nations. Now, the second time in the Ten Commandments, that's a little more specific. This time we are acknowledging the fact that Hashem revealed and displayed his kingship, his rulership directly over us, his chosen nation. And for this reason, Rashi writes, the Exodus now comes and commands us and obligates us, rather, to fulfill all of his mitzvot. Because that's something that now is reserved only for us, because he freed us from Egypt. Everyone saw it, but we lived it, and he was doing it on our behalf. Therefore, we now have to fulfill all of the Torah. And that's why it was placed by the Mitzvah of Shabbat, says Reb Leib. Because Shabbat is the mitzvah given to us, which is the way we are obligated to attest, stand testimony, give testimony that Hashem is the creator of the world, the same way he created for 6 days and rested on the seventh. So too we create for 6 days and we rest on our seventh day of the week, just as God did. So as just to sum it up, to I guess review it quickly, the reason why there are 2 mentions of the Exodus in our 10 commandments is coming to reiterate that Hashem now finally revealed himself to the world, something which he was unable to do by the creation, to prove to the entire world that he is the creator and the ruler of this world. And one aspect of this was towards the entire world, but another aspect was specifically towards the Jewish people. And that's why, too, number one for the entire world, that's Anochi Hashem, I am the one and only. When it comes to the Mitzvah of Shabbat, where we attest that Hashem himself is the creator and he rested on that 7th day, that is coming and obligating us to fulfill his mitzvot, us more than the rest of the nations. The nations of the world have 7 mitzvot. 7 mitzvot b'nei Noach, that's it, and 7 Noachide laws. We have 613 that guide us, that nurture us, that direct us in the right way to live the most successful and prominent lifestyles through the lens and through the guidance of our Torah. And that's the reason for the 2 mentions. So may this be a shout out to all Jews around the world to recognize how special we are, that we are the chosen nation, that Hashem took us out of Egypt. We would still be there if Hashem would have not taken us out, as we say every year by Passover. And that we have this responsibility, this obligation, but also this ability and this reward to learn and to fulfill our Torah, the Torah that Hashem gave us. So this is a tremendous, why did I say at the beginning this has to remind us also about Rosh Hashanah? Because Rosh Hashanah is the day that we celebrate God's kingship over the entire world, being it's the first day of creation, or rather the day that Hashem created Adam, mankind, to acknowledge his kingship, his rulership over the world. So this is a powerful, powerful lesson that the truth is even though it was due to God back by the 6 days of creation, but since Adam wasn't there to witness it, Hashem had to reveal himself again by the Exodus, through the 10 plagues and the splitting of the sea and the giving of the Torah, to the entire world and specifically to the Jewish people, in order to prove once again that he is the creator and the ruler of the world. Once we start living our lives understanding that he is the creator and he's the ruler and he is involved in each and every one of our lives, and we do make a difference. And what we do, what we say, what we think, how we act actually makes a difference. And God really cares. We are his children. We are here to forge a strong relationship with him, to grow as human beings and individuals through that relationship, through our Torah. So may HaKadosh Baruch Hu bless us in the merit of Rabbi Leib Heyman, that we should always understand that He is the Creator, He is the ruler, He revealed Himself again to us by the Exodus and by the giving of the Torah, and that we are to serve Him as faithful servants, which is to our greatest benefit. Thank you everyone for joining us. And if anyone has any questions, you can unmute yourself. Go for it.
Where is Mr. Capriano?
I don't know. Where are all his questions? He must be busy.
His questions.
He does text me afterwards that he sees the recordings.
That's great. Baruch Hashem, as long as he's well. Well, Kol HaKavod, Rabbi, it was a beautiful shir. It was really wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Do we have any questions? If not, we'll call it a night.
I just have one little comment.
Yeah.
I did put it in the chat. I remember the first time you taught us the connection between the 10 utterances of creation, paralleling the 10 plagues and the 10 commandments. That was so powerful. That was so amazing. And then I remember that I don't know if I mentioned it on one of the classes, but I think we spoke about it, that actually in the Shema, there's references to the 10 utterances. Oh, and I forgot to add that it is also parallel and related to the 10 sfirot. Sorry, because I remember we talked about that after. So 10 is a very big word, very, very big number in our Jewish learning, and very powerful. And notice we have 10 fingers.
10 is a number of building, Reb Pincus explains, and creating. And that's why we have 10 fingers, to build and create. And Hashem created the world with 10 utterances.
Yes.
It's a complete number also. It's when the digit gets pushed up. There's a lot to that.
Wonderful. And also we learned recently, I think it was together, that the 10 fingers, yes, that in each hand we have 14 joints, right? And together that makes 28. And 28 is koach. There we go. I knew we learned it together. So that's the
For those who didn't get that, I'm getting a couple of funny stares.
Why? They didn't like that?
No, they didn't understand it. Basically, we have 14 joints in our, not joints, it's more sections in our fingers, right? We've got 1, 2, 3 times 4.
That's right. And
plus, and the thumb only has 2, so that's 14. 14 is the numerical value of yad, hand, and 14 is the numerical value of 28, and 28 is the numerical value of koach, strength.
Exactly. Wonderful.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to let you go.